The BAME Vision logo, 4 solid circles from left to right in colours of brown, tan, coffee and beige, with the words BAME written in white within them, with the word Vision written in tan underneath, and below the words Supporting Ethnically Diverse Communities with Their Eye Health and Sight Loss in brown.
Hi, I'm Karishma and I am partially sighted. I have albinism and I currently work at Guide Dogs in the diversity, equality and inclusion team, so I'm quite passionate about it. I have lived experience of sight loss, having a disability, and I identify as lesbian or bisexual. I'm not quite sure yet, but I don't know what is the right term for me, but something to explore. I definitely identify as part of the LGBTQIA community.
What challenges do you face belonging to the LGBTQ plus community, being minority ethnic, and having a vision impairment?
Yeah, that is quite a list of things to identify with. I think my biggest struggle was coming out and being okay with it. I grew up in Kenya and there was a strong part of me that was homophobic, like especially internally homophobic. I was very accepting to other people who are LGBTQIA, but I just never thought I'd ever want it for myself. I think having the struggles of being visually impaired, I knew that being different has its own struggles, and I didn't want to go through that again. I was worn out from being visually impaired and from a BAME community where inequality is quite prevalent. But I think through support, I went for counseling when I first accepted it, and I've begun to accept it a bit more. I don't think I'm 100% ever going to be okay with it, but it's one of those things I'm so accepting now as can be, and I can live with it. I still have a few more challenges. I haven't come out to my family, mainly because I don't have the bravery it requires at this moment in time. I think my family would be quite accepting, but whether I want to go through that challenge, I'm not sure. I think as well, being part of an Indian community, but in Kenya, we're very community orientated. So even if your family is accepting of something, there is the wider implication of the community, whether they will accept that. And I don't really want to put my family through that. It's not really relevant. And I'm just happy to be living my life separately. I live in London. They mostly live in Kenya. I live with my brother and sister. My sister knows, but my brother, I've never had the guts to tell him. And I think it's just one of those things where, especially in the beginning, being partially sighted, it can be quite isolating. In the beginning, I found it very much so, because I had to navigate a world by myself. I had to educate myself on a lot of things, and I didn't really feel like I could talk to any of my friends, and the ones who I could talk to were really nice. They were very supportive, but they couldn't go through that journey with me. So in the beginning, it was quite isolating, but now, and I say it's still a journey, I still am going through those things where you do a lot more things like socializing and being okay. Now, when I do meet new people, I'm very comfortable telling them, but I'm still at that stage where I still don't socialize as much as I should with the LGBTQIA community.
Could you talk about your experience of having a disability and how you identify?
I think one of the things, especially in the early days, I don't think people understood intersectionality that well. So if you identify as part of a group and then you have to go to venues and things and just explore a social life that could be you, I found accessibility became a bit of an issue. So if I'd go to a venue or a club or even somewhere where you're just there to like meet other LGBTQIA people, the question of me being disabled it was really difficult to kind of put my stamp on it and be there. And the truth is that, even with the visual impairment, I've had to put in a lot of work to accept that and be okay with it in not the sense of for myself, but when I go to places that people are not shy from me, because what does end up happening when you go to a new place or a new situation and people haven't experienced being around somebody who's visually impaired, unfortunately you have to sometimes do the work of making them comfortable with it. I got to that stage where I was really comfortable with it. I was happy to do the work. It was a nuisance, but I had accepted that this is just a part of life I'm gonna have to do for the rest of my life. And I started working in the sight loss sector, and I kind of got used to not having to explain it, and it was becoming a bit more comfortable around the visual impairment. And then when I started identifying as part of the LGBTQIA community, it started all over again, where starting right from the beginning, where you have to explain what you need and what accessibility is. But then I also remember actually that the world has moved on quite a lot. I remember going to this venue and I had my cane with me, and straight away the venue was just amazing. The bartender and the guards at the gate, as soon as they saw the cane, it's like they knew straight away what to do. One of the bartenders, he guided me around the venue. He showed me where the toilets are and where to get drinks from. And throughout the night, he just looked after me. And I just thought that was amazing, because as difficult as it can be having a disability, actually the world is slowly showing me that it is progressing very slowly but surely. And it did kind of make it a lot easier to build my confidence and go out to places, because I know that, there might be times when people are not comfortable with a visual impairment, but there are other times when people are completely comfortable and know what to do and really accepting, and they just accept you as part of their group and as part of them. And yes, you might have to do a little bit of educating, but actually, sometimes you meet people who are willing to learn. And what it did teach me that actually maybe if I don't worry about my sight loss or identifying as part of a group and just worry about building on my social skills, then maybe that will be my biggest asset. So sometimes being different has taught me really to build on my social skills and has enabled me to conquer a lot of environments. And I still get anxiety, but not as much as I used to maybe 10, 15 years ago.
And they don't know what they've just done just by literally, doing the right things and approaching you the right way. Like the bartender you just mentioned, that like it literally gives you more confidence to go out and about a lot more and everything. Like some people, they just don't know what they've just done.
Yeah, and you've articulated it incredibly well, actually. Like you don't, and he just think, oh, it was just a normal night for me, but for me, it's he's changed my perception of it. And I remember in that same night as well, there was somebody else who came, and she's a wheelchair user, and like in the past, you wouldn't even see that sort of thing. You wouldn't see a wheelchair user or somebody who's VI, or at least visibly VI. And now you can see it, that people are there and people are not. They're becoming less and less afraid of engaging with disabled people, and I love that.
How and when did you feel you could be open to close ones?
I think so. I realized that I might be different, I guess in my late teens, early 20s, but I just thought, oh, it's a one-off event. Maybe like me crushing on my flatmate is just a one-off thing and happens to everybody. And so I kind of just dismissed it and didn't really think much of it. But then it sort of happened again and again with other people, and I realized, okay, maybe there's a part of me that I need to explore and be okay with. And the thing is, once you realize, it begins to eat you up alive, and it eats you up so much until you accept it and be okay with it. And I reached that point of desperation, but also no return. So I knew I had to do something about it, otherwise I will not live my full life. And I will end up not wanting to live the life that I deserve or the life that I want. And that seemed like such a high price to pay for something that, especially in England, where it is against the law to be discriminatory. So I think the first thing I sort of had to kind of convince myself was, okay, I don't need to make any big decisions right now. I can just take one step at a time, and I sort of coached myself through it each stage. So one day I said, okay, you know what, today all my task is to research organizations. That's all my task is to do, nothing else. And like that, once I did that, then my next day task, I'd be like, okay, my today's task will be just go have a conversation with them. I don't need to commit to anything. I don't need to decide anything yet. And like that, I took myself through very small stages of acceptance and or doing things, and I ended up going for counseling. And through that, because you end up having the space to talk about it as much as you need to, it sort of normalized the feeling of being able to say it. In the beginning, it was quite difficult and I'd get quite panicky about it, whereas now, because I've had to say it so much, it's normalized it a lot. I've come out to all my friends. I haven't come out to all my family. That's a different ball game in itself. But I think it's normalized it so much that now any new people I meet, I'm quite comfortable saying it and I'm okay with it. And it's one of those things that I think the more diverse you are, or the more it gives you a true sense of, I would say, a gift of reading people, because if somebody's not accepting of you, straight away I can dismiss them and not tolerate and choose not to put up with, anti-social behavior. For me, that gives me quite a good filter for life. There are way too many people in this world and I don't want to spend my energy on the wrong people. So in that sense, it's given me a really handy skill. Have its struggles, but I think I'm sort of living now in a day and age where it's more okay now than it might have been even 10 years ago or 20 years ago. And I try and remind myself of the positives. I think working in the diversity and equality team, one of the things I have had to do, which I find quite exhausting, is sometimes explaining to people. I've had conversations with people who do end up being quite homophobic or transphobic, and it annoys me a lot, and I have to keep reminding myself that maybe I'll just see this as an opportunity to educate and not worry about where those people are, and just have a civil conversation. But if they're ultimately not accepting, then that's their problem, not mine. But it has been, I think, one of the biggest challenges I still find is educating people and making them okay with something that I shouldn't have to make them okay. And I feel like they're taking a shortcut by asking me, when really they should be putting in the work themselves to educate themselves. When people are homophobic, one of the things that they would say is, oh, it's against nature, people are supposed to have sex to have babies. And for me, I completely disagree with that. Yes, it's one of the reasons, but actually I think nature has a way of working in a very holistic way. I think that nature sort of fixes itself and it never isolates anything in one particular way of thinking. And I think as human beings, we're very good at saying one thing but thinking in a very linear way and finding a conclusion for something. But actually nature does not work like that at all. I believe that people who are homosexual are a part of nature, and they're there to help in nature. Maybe they're there to help control the population. So I don't think that people have sex just to have kids. I think nature has its own way of working and balancing out everything together. If a population is a bit too big, then having a few animals who are, for example, homosexual, there's nothing wrong with that. I think there's a way of, that's nature's way of balancing out everything. I think it's just us humans who completely live in an imbalanced way. Yeah.
How is your sexuality represented in your hobbies and interests?
I love nature and I love cycling, and I think at the moment I never ever thought about, I need to look for LGBTQIA specific groups, or I never thought about cyclo specific groups that do those hobbies. I think I just literally started taking my bike out, and I have a guide dog, so I try and cycle in a very safe space. And then once I built my confidence, I ended up joining a local group in Croydon, and we became quite a social group as well. And when it was comfortable enough to share my sexuality, it was such a safe space, because by me sharing mine, I ended up encouraging somebody else to share about their sexuality. And actually it's quite sweet, because now I think more and more people are visibly becoming, they're exploring a world where actually being straight is not the norm anymore. And I say that because I go to university as well. I'm doing a law degree. And when I listen to the conversations young people are having, it does amaze me, because they're at that point where they're not even identifying as any part of label. They're just, they are exploring, I am where I am right now. And, if in the future or in my past I ended up being attracted to the same sex, it doesn't really matter. Who needs to put labels to it? And I love, as cheesy as it sounds, but I love that fluidity the younger generation have. And I'm trying to use that in my own life, be more flexible, be more fluid, because actually it's easier to deal with things. And I think that's true. That's probably why I struggle putting a label to my own sexuality, because first of all, even being a bit homophobic before, I never liked the lesbian word, and I still don't like it. And I try and avoid it as much as possible. The L word. And it's just, one of those things where I feel, actually, the younger generation are showing us that you don't need to fit a certain box, or you don't need to fit a certain label, and you can just go with how you feel in the moment and in the day. And if I was dating somebody who was the same sex with me right now, then yes, I would identify that label at that time, but I don't need to fit into a box. And even with my hobbies, if I just focus on the things that I love to do, I love reading, I love cycling, I love animals, then the rest will fall in its place, as it should, as it would. And I don't need to focus on, because in the past I would focus on, for example, sight loss specific stuff and LGBTQI specific stuff, but actually I lost quite a lot of the essence of what the hobby was. We'd end up talking about sight loss specific issues, or I'd go to groups and a book club, for example, and they would be very specific. They'd look for books that were quite LGBTQI friendly, and to be honest, that was never my genre. I just love reading books, so now I just explore my hobbies and just see where they take me.
What have you found to be positive in your experience?
So some of the things I found positive about being visually impaired and part of the LGBTQ community, I think being different, yes, it has its challenges, but actually the way I think and my thought process is unique. It's unique because of the struggles that I have, and actually sometimes it gives you intel or solving problems in a way that a normal person who, and I hate the word normal, but they wouldn't be able to solve that in a similar way, just because of, how different my brain works. I think one of the things as well, I look into nature for a lot of inspiration, and especially in the early days when I really struggled with being who I am, and I'd look into nature and say, actually, that animals show signs of being gay, or same sex, and so why, if nature is accepting of it, why can't I be accepting of it? And through that process of just self-discovery and watching a lot of videos of why gay people exist, and I've learned quite a lot about myself, and I've learned quite a lot about that actually we are all unique, and that we can all really embrace our diversity. So that's, for me, I am a living proof or an example of that. There have been situations where I really struggle to get on with people because of the way they think and the way they do things, but that's, I think, reflecting on it, it's got nothing to do, with me as such, but it's just how open-minded people have been. And I don't want to say this in a very arrogant way, but actually those sort of situations have taught me that, you know what, as difficult as times can be, I really appreciate and cherish myself, because it's giving me a unique way of living life and an experience of life that maybe not many people will even get to have. And maybe there's some beauty in that. And, you know, all the challenges I have, maybe there'll be some beauty in that. And for example, being visually impaired, people think, oh yeah, I should never cycle and I won't be able to. But actually, I've made moderations to the way I cycle. I use really fat bikes. I use tires that are really stable. I ride quite slowly. And by doing it differently, I'm exposing myself to a whole set of experiences that, again, are so beautiful. And I love that. And I think it's giving me a way of living that I never thought I could, or every year seems to be quite different from each other. And I love that. You know, I can't say that I live my life in any way than other people, or I can't relate to many people, and that's okay. But actually, I can bring richness and diversity to everything I do, and for me, that's the nice thing about being different.
What are your hopes for the future?
I think I want to see a fair and equitable world, and I will continue believing in that for as long as I live. I will keep inspiring as long as I can. I will encourage other people to believe in that vision as much as possible. And I don't just mean equality for humanity, but I mean, again, I love the environment, animals, and nature, and I want to see equality for all beings of life, irrespective of what shape or being you are. I am beginning to see huge signs of that. So I think it's amazing. I think we still have quite far to go. There are a lot of countries that are still quite homophobic. There are a lot of countries that are still quite not disabled friendly. But I'm hoping in the power of people and social movements, and slowly we can change that. Those are my hopes for the future, an equal world for all beings of life.